The anime begins in ancient times when there were creatures called Oni who were terrifying and frightening, slaughtering humans and anyone who stood in their way. But one man attacked them, named Momotaro, who invaded Onigashima and defeated countless Oni. This was the beginning of the war between the Oni and Momotaro. Then we moved to Tsuyoshi from Momotaro's lineage after he kept an Oni child who was his friend. Samadari warned him about this wrong action because of the enmity between them. But Tsuyoshi didn't care and was confident in what he was doing. Then we moved to the present, to Ichino's liquor store. Then we moved to Shiki's room, which was full of firearms, with a gun in front of him that he was trying to fix while talking on the phone with one of his friends. His friend told him that he had been fired from his job and didn't know what to do. Then Tsuyoshi, his father, came to him and entered suddenly, causing Shiki to panic and fall to the ground. Tsuyoshi asked him how he got fired and demanded an explanation, but Shiki scolded him and told him to shut up, saying he didn't care about this, which angered Tsuyoshi because his son dared to speak to him like that. He aimed a punch at him, but Shiki easily avoided it. Tsuyoshi asked Shiki about the amount of weapons he had and told him it was a liquor store, not a weapons shop, but Shiki told him to shut up again and that it was none of his business. He also told him that his customers were starting to decrease again, which embarrassed Tsuyoshi, who asked Shiki not to interfere in this matter because it concerned adults. This led to Shiki mocking him because it only concerned adults, and Tsuyoshi began to mock Shiki as well for being a fool who was fired from his job and acting arrogantly, which embarrassed Shiki. He told his father that he didn't want to end up like him, and the best thing was that they didn't share the same blood, which disturbed Tsuyoshi, who told him not to talk nonsense. Then Tsuyoshi went downstairs to receive a call, with a picture of Shiki as a child in front of him. Tsuyoshi received an order to buy liquor and said he would deliver it. When Tsuyoshi went to deliver the liquor, Shiki was watching him and wished that a rich man had raised him instead of Tsuyoshi. Then Shiki picked up his gun and aimed at the target board and was about to fire, but an explosion occurred downstairs. He went to take a look and found thick white smoke. Then black fog appeared from within the white smoke, which surprised Shiki. He was grabbed by the black fog and thrown out of the room into the street. After that, Samadari appeared to him, which made Shiki very afraid, but Tsuyoshi appeared at the right time and hit Samadari with the car. He offered a helping hand to Shiki and asked him to get in the car quickly, and they fled, but the black fog remained visible in front of Samadari, which means he was still alive. We moved to Tsuyoshi escaping in the car with Shiki. Tsuyoshi saw that the best solution for them was to flee the country. Shiki asked Tsuyoshi if he had borrowed money from suspicious people or loan sharks or something of that sort, and that this wasn't a sufficient reason to run over one of them, but Tsuyoshi told him not to worry about this because he wasn't dead yet, but to Shiki, he was dead. They started arguing and almost had an accident on the road, but Tsuyoshi avoided it. Then Tsuyoshi confessed to Shiki that he belonged to the Oni lineage, which astonished Shiki. Tsuyoshi also told him that the man he met was from Momotaro's lineage. Shiki thought Tsuyoshi was joking with him, but this wasn't the right time, and Tsuyoshi thought it would be difficult for Shiki to believe this now, but it was the truth. Suddenly, the black fog appeared again in the form of a weapon attacking them and almost killed Tsuyoshi. Then the black fog surrounded the entire car until they lost visibility and succeeded in disabling their car. They stopped the car and Shiki got out, as did Tsuyoshi, who approached Shiki to escape together. But the car exploded completely and the black fog disappeared from it, and Shiki also disappeared after that. Tsuyoshi began looking around for Shiki until the fog appeared to him, heading toward one of the buildings. Then we moved to inside the building, where Shiki was tightly bound. Then Samadari came to him and told Shiki that Oni blood doesn't flow. He has a plague on humanity and he must kill him because this is his mission and they are the Momotaro organization. Shiki asked in surprise how he was still alive, until Tsuyoshi appeared to them, then approached Samadari and asked Shiki to stay in place and watch until Samadari revealed his weapon from the black mist and attacked Tsuyoshi. But Tsuyoshi also revealed his weapon from the black mist because he is from the same Momotaro lineage. They delivered powerful blows to each other until Samadari moved away from Tsuyoshi to avoid his strike. Samadari mentioned that a long time had passed since they met and that they were also old now. He called him by his old name in the organization, which angered Tsuyoshi, who asked him not to call him by that name anymore. Shiki was surprised by this because his father was from the Momotaro. Tsuyoshi told Samadari that his name is Tsuyoshi, but Samadari did not acknowledge this because it wouldn't change the fact that he was from the Momotaro organization. He asked if he had forgotten how dangerous the Oni are and that he had raised one of the Oni, therefore he would be eliminated as well. He mocked his words and attacked him, delivering a powerful blow, but Samadari blocked it. They continued exchanging blows while Shiki was astonished by what was happening because he had no idea what was going on. They continued directing strikes at each other, and Samadari was angry because Tsuyoshi had sheltered one of the Oni while knowing they do nothing but harm humans. Shiki remained surprised that Tsuyoshi hadn't told him. Then Tsuyoshi attacked Samadari, but Samadari was well prepared and avoided Tsuyoshi's strike until he succeeded in severely injuring Tsuyoshi, causing him to fall to the ground and the black mist power to disappear from him, which led to Shiki's extreme sadness for his father. Then Samadari approached Tsuyoshi and asked if he thought he could defeat him after everything he had been through since he left. Shiki then shouted at Samadari and asked to fight him now, but Samadari was actually waiting for this moment. Then Tsuyoshi grabbed Samadari, and Samadari wondered why Tsuyoshi was defending this Oni to such an extent. But Tsuyoshi believed that a father needs something to protect his son, and that he would protect him forever because he is his precious son, and it's not his fault that Oni blood flows within him. He asked if he would kill a child who knows nothing about the Oni in the first place. But Samadari didn't care about his words and revealed a weapon from the black mist. Shiki was extremely afraid for his father and asked himself why he wasn't doing anything while watching this, and why was his father the one experiencing this, and that he was the target, and he began transforming into one of the Oni. The Oni power started appearing to him, his body began filling with blood, and he became very angry, vowing to kill Samadari. Then he completely transformed into an Oni and broke free from his restraint and disappeared from his place, which surprised Samadari. Then weapons suddenly appeared through Shiki, aimed at Samadari, and he began firing at Samadari, who was defending against them. Then Shiki disappeared again, but the falling blood revealed his location above. Shiki then landed on the ground after fully transforming and was extremely angry, which made Samadari very tense. Then Shiki attacked Samadari and began directing blows at him, but Samadari managed to cut off Shiki's hand and almost split him in half, but Shiki moved away just in time and revealed his arm again as if nothing had happened. He displayed a set of heavy weapons and fired at Samadari. Samadari successfully defended against them but couldn't continue and began fleeing from the shots directed at him, but Shiki didn't stop firing at him until Samadari flew high and threw one of his special weapons at him, causing an explosion where Shiki was located. Samadari prepared himself after that until Shiki suddenly appeared to him from the middle of the white smoke and delivered a powerful blow to Samadari, pushing him away and causing him to crash into the building walls. Shiki then approached him and pinned him to the ground by stepping on him with his foot, aiming many firearms at him. He was about to shoot him but fired into the air instead, causing a large gap in the building, and Samadari was no longer beneath him. Then Samadari appeared. Under the stones, he became very angry with Shiki. Then Shiki fell to the ground and the weapons began to disappear as he started returning to his normal state. He asked about what happened to him in astonishment. Samadari told him this was a state of confusion resulting from memory loss and physical transformation. Then Samadari revealed his weapon again, approached him and told him that if he died here, all his fear would end, and that all Oni must also be eliminated. He was about to kill him, but Tsuyoshi suddenly appeared in front of Samadari and took the blow on behalf of his son Shiki, and also managed to wound Samadari. Samadari asked Sabunai if he was still sticking to his decision even after seeing this Oni. Tsuyoshi remembered Shiki as a child, and Shiki became angry about his father being injured in his place, but Tsuyoshi smiled and told him he was very happy, which made Samadari wonder about this. Then we move outside the building where people gathered, thinking it was a gas explosion. Then we move back inside the building where Samadari disappeared, but Shiki asked him to wait. Tsuyoshi lay down on the ground and Shiki was very worried about his father. Shiki wanted to contact the ambulance, but Tsuyoshi didn't want this and asked him to listen to him for the last time. He told him he was sorry for hiding this from him and informed him they would kill him because he carries Oni blood, and that he would no longer be with him. He told him he must become stronger and be strong enough to kill the Momotaro and the Oni blood flowing inside him so he could live freely and no one would take away his happiness. He asked him to make this promise, but Shiki shouted and told him to shut up, that he didn't want a farewell speech from him. He carried him and moved with him, saying they had a lot to talk about, and asked if he understood him or not. But Tsuyoshi closed his eyes and saw it was good for Momotaro and Oni to live side by side, then fell to the ground dead. Shiki couldn't believe this and told him he hadn't apologized yet, and that he had told him he was happy they didn't share blood. He asked him to get up because he wanted to hear his apology, and asked him to say anything to him, crying heavily in grief. Then a young man named Naito came up behind Shiki and struck him, causing Shiki to lose consciousness. This man was surprised that Shiki didn't sense him and reconsidered his assessment of him. Then we moved to the Momotaro headquarters, where they said Samadari made a mistake in what he did, and that they shouldn't reveal themselves to humans, nor should people discover that Oni live among them. They reached a solution to kill all Oni children. Then one of the Oni members spoke to Naito on the phone and told him he heard he managed to make some pass the test, and that many years had passed since they had a successful applicant, and that they would get a bountiful harvest suddenly after all these lean years. He told him they were strong and that it was their first time to have such Oni, and asked if he had found another one of them. Tanio told him he brought him but thought evaluating him would be a waste of time, and if he proved useless, he would dispose of him. Shiki dreamed about Baby when they were on a picnic together, then suddenly remembered his father being killed by Samadari. He snapped back to reality, terrified, with Naito next to him doing exercises. Shiki looked at him, very surprised. After finishing his workout, Naito told Shiki that he doesn't like useless people, then introduced himself as one of the Oni and showed proof of it. He said he wouldn't reveal their location and that Shiki's father's body was in a safe place. Naito said he brought Shiki here for 2 reasons: evaluation and recovery. Naito then brought a board closer and said he uses these very fast skates. On the board, he wrote the Momotaro organization, explaining it means black fog. Anyone from Momotaro controls this fog, like the one who killed Shiki's father. He said the organization is made to eliminate the Oni, and in response, the Oni formed their own group. Naito's job is to search for Oni individuals and evaluate them to decide if they're suitable to join their organization or not. He returned the board, untied Shiki so he could answer questions. But Shiki got angry, wanting Naito to remove the restraints completely. He asked what Naito did to his father and threatened to kill him if anything happened to him. Naito said he lost a point for telling him that his father was safe because if he wanted to hurt him, he wouldn't have told him in the first place. He asked if Shiki lacked the mental capacity to understand that and said he wasted 35 seconds of his life with such a question. Shiki ignored Naito's words and didn't trust a single word from his mouth. Naito thought Shiki was stubborn, and that what's happening now has nothing to do with his father. He said the evaluation would continue if Shiki had no questions. Shiki stayed angry, demanded his restraints removed, but lost another point because he was tied up for being violent. Shiki asked Naito to stop the evaluation since it made him angry, but Naito insisted on continuing. Shiki thought about what to do while angry and told himself he had to calm down. Then he said he hadn't heard of this evaluation before and didn't have time for it. He asked Naito what he thought about first untying him, and then talking since he had unfinished business with his father's killer. He looked at Naito with a smile and asked him not to stand in his way, but Naito asked him not to give him that frightening look, which annoyed Shiki again. Naito hung his umbrella on the board after realizing Shiki was a death seeker and that he had the perfect way to deal with him. Then he got closer after loosening his necktie, saying the usual evaluation method wasn't effective. He told Shiki the necktie didn't suit him, then wrapped it tightly around his neck and started choking him hard because real creatures' nature shows when close to death. He told Shiki to use his pinky finger to get out of the situation, or he'd die. Shiki began transforming again, blood starting to appear from his body. He lost consciousness and collapsed, blood pouring onto the ground. The blood turned into branches and swung at Naito, pushing him away from Shiki. Then Shiki appeared in Oni form, pointed a weapon at Naito, and fired many shots. But Naito was unharmed, using his bloody umbrella for protection. Naito realized Shiki couldn't properly control Oni blood, and said he'd teach him how. Naito was sure Shiki wouldn't remember anything when he returned to his real consciousness. Shiki attacked Naito and hit him, but Naito didn't move, confident about it. Then Shiki returned to normal, began to regain consciousness again, and looked at his arm, realizing he had transformed again. Naito told him he didn't remember what happened and said controlling Oni blood was tough because when one gets wild, they lose self-awareness and memory, destroying everything in the process. Shiki didn't know about Naito's words, and asked about the strange substance coming out of him. Naito thought a knife in an ignorant hand was terrifying and said this wasn't a wild state that Shiki was controlling his Oni blood, so no further explanation was needed. He told Shiki he wasn't qualified, which surprised Shiki, who thought that made no sense. He wanted Naito to explain again, but realized Naito had great power. Shiki admitted Naito annoyed him a lot, but was very strong, so he swallowed his pride and begged him to be his follower, to become stronger and avenge his father. Naito refused, because in battle, thinking less means death. Yet, Shiki became wild and lost control over his blood and mind, letting anger take over, making him useless. This made Shiki furious, but he endured because he wanted to join after being scorned. Naito felt this was the right time to get rid of Shiki since he shouldn't be left roaming free. Then Naito hurt himself and showed his bloody umbrella. Shiki didn't give up, thinking if he didn't act fast, he'd die. It was do or die. He attacked Naito again, who was ready with his spiky bloody umbrella. Naito thought Shiki lost his mind, but Shiki successfully transformed just his arm, not his whole body. Naito was surprised. Shiki fired at Naito, then fell, but Naito wasn't affected again. He shattered Shiki's shot, calling it beginner's luck because Shiki was about to go wild. Naito used his power and showed a group of doll soldiers pointing weapons at Shiki. Shiki told him he wasn't giving up and succeeded in not losing control and going wild. He scolded Naito, who asked what he thought that he controlled his blood. Naito wondered if Shiki had really controlled his blood and the calm state but wanted to know how. Shiki replied if he wanted to know, he needed to make him his follower. Naito said he'd think about it, which angered Shiki. Shiki didn't know anything about Oni blood but overheard Naito talking talking about controlling it. He thought about how to do that. When Naito hurt himself and showed his umbrella, Shiki thought since they were both Oni, he would mimic him but didn't know how until he cleared his mind and made a weapon from his arm. He succeeded, but Naito thought it was foolish logic, which made Shiki angry. Naito believed it was impossible for someone so reckless to control Oni blood, because impulsive emotional people like Shiki find it hard to manage their blood and are the worst to have this power. Usually, controlling Oni blood requires calm. Naito thought about what was happening with Shiki and that he should calm down to avoid going wild. Naito planned to use only 30% of his power, which would bore him in prison. Back in the present, Naito told himself he must maintain balance, avoid going wild, and control his blood, listening well to his mind. But Shiki was different. He couldn't control his feelings or use his power in a lower state. He did whatever he wanted, and wanted power at all costs, ignoring his mind. Naito realized Shiki wasn't acting rationally, just using instinct to control his blood. This type had many flaws but explosive energy. Shiki said he'd absorb everything Naito teaches to get stronger and avenge his father and maybe become one of the right men as Naito wanted. Naito refused again because Shiki's actions were reckless and gambling with his life. He asked if losing control wasn't bad and said a good fighter has backup plans. If every guess sets him back to zero, it's ineffective. Then Naito stabbed Shiki's head with his weapon, saying he didn't even think of making him his follower for 1 second. However, he didn't really injure him. Shiki got angry at Naito's rejection. Later, Naito thought about taking Shiki as his student, shocking Shiki. Naito told him he had no chance initially but succeeded. Didn't explain more but believed Shiki was a failure, judged prematurely. He promised to explain better later. Naito told him about an island called Hell's Threshold, also known as Onigashima. At its center was a school for Oni called Resetsu Academy, not a regular school. It had many Oni soldiers training and fighting against Momotaro. Shiki was amazed to realize he was now on that island but got hit by Naito since that wasn't important now. Naito continued while Shiki writhed in pain on the ground, explaining that at this academy, he'd learn to control his blood and combat techniques. He'd also learn about the history and relations between Oni and Momotaro, and that Naito would be his teacher. They'd live in a dorm, train daily, and fight the Momotaro organization. That was everything. Shiki felt his head might explode while Naito said his brain was the size of a glass cup. Shiki got angry at this insult, but his main concern was to ask if he'd become strong enough to kill the scoundrels who killed his father. Naito told him it depended on him. If he didn't become strong, he'd be kicked out. Shiki got excited about becoming very strong, joining them, and going to any school with them. Then, we moved to Shiki's new room, and he is surprised by the growth of the thing on his head. Naito was waiting for him outside, continuing his exercises. Then Shiki came out to him in his new school uniform. Shiki couldn't believe he was going back to school again, but Naito told him that he wasn't the only one who succeeded, and that he had the lowest level among them. If they found him useless, he would be expelled. But Shiki told him to take it easy with him, then asked him about his father. Naito explained to him that his father's body was in the morgue, and that he hadn't taken care of it because he didn't know his religion. So he left the matter like that until he arranged his funeral. He told him that wallowing in blood was a waste of time. Shiki thought Naito's approach was very harsh, but Naito advised Shiki to be strong so he wouldn't feel regret again and wouldn't be a fool who doesn't learn from his experiences. Shiki felt that Naito was becoming nicer to him, but then Naito moved and told Shiki that he had 15 seconds to get to his class. But Shiki thought this was unfair and that he couldn't do it, but Naito told him that he would be expelled like that. Shiki asked him not to act like a demon, but Naito already was one. Then they moved to Shiki's new class. Shiki was very tired. Then he began to think about how to enter the class, whether to kick the door with his foot or act calmly and with dignity as if he were the principal. But Naito kicked him so he would enter, and he fell to the ground inside the class, bleeding, which annoyed him. There was a group of students like him in the same class. He asked one of the students, named Jin, if he had a handkerchief. He asked him why he was wearing a mask. Was he suffering from hay fever? But Jin asked him not to talk to him, which shocked Shiki. Then he approached Jin and told him that he had a sharp tongue, but Jin didn't pay attention to Shiki's words. Then Shiki laughed at Jin because he didn't have horns like him and asked him if he was a young Oni, and told him that with training he could put them in and out and control them as he wished. But Jin showed his horns and told Shiki that a person who shows off his horns is a stupid beginner. But another student called out to Shiki, named Ikari, and asked him if the word stupid included him as well, because he was showing his horns. Jin said it included everyone, which angered Ikari. Ikari told Jin that he was ready to fight if he wanted to. The other Oni girl agreed with this, and her name was Quina, but some of them asked them to respect the class rules and that he had a handkerchief instead of all this fighting. There was another girl named Homare, but she didn't have a handkerchief. There was Rokuro, who didn't care about anyone and felt pain in his stomach and thought he was going to die. The Oni with green hair wanted to tear a page from the book, but Shiki asked him not to do this. But the boy with green hair wanted to abide by the rules if it would maintain order. But he tore a page from the book and gave it to Shiki to use as a handkerchief. But Shiki thought this would hurt his nose. Shiki was angry with Jin for despising him. Jin confirmed to him that he did despise him, which annoyed Shiki. But Naito appeared to them and told them that they weren't there to play around. They were both surprised by Naito's presence behind them. Naito asked Jin about his pale look at him, as if he had seen a ghost. The students were in shock. Then Shiki asked to switch seats because he couldn't stand Jin, but Naito asked him to deal with the situation. Naito told the students that today's lecture was supposed to be an orientation to introduce them to the school, but they would do something else instead. Since they were Oni, they would play a game of tag. Everyone was excited except for Shiki, who was shocked that they were going to play. Then they moved to the Shinra forest. Naito told them that they had 1 hour to return to the school without being caught, and that if one of them was caught, they would be tied up. If everyone was caught, the game would end. Shiki thought this was a normal game of tag, but Naito told them that anyone who didn't reach the goal in time would be expelled, which annoyed them and angered Shiki. He thought this was crazy, but Naito told him that this school wasn't normal and that he had to understand this. This was training because after graduation they would be on the front lines facing the Momotaro and their lives would be on the line. He hadn't used his blood, but they were allowed to use their blood. But if one of them went into a berserk state, he would use his blood then. But Jin asked Naito if he could kill him, because if he thought he could defeat him without using blood, he shouldn't be sad if he was killed. But Naito told them to try because if they succeeded in this, they would graduate immediately and be assigned to the unit of their choice. Shiki was amazed by this and thought that if he graduated, he would immediately get closer to his father's killer, but he would find it difficult to kill Naito, of course. Then Naito told them that they had all come here for a reason, and that if they wanted to achieve it, they had to keep winning, and that he would continue to throw obstacles in their way. If they couldn't overcome them, they would fall. Naito thought that most of them were ready and looked at Shiki and said, "Except for one of you." He asked him if he was going to withdraw, but Shiki was angry at his question and asked him not to joke with him. He told him that if a man comes with everything he has, then he must return the blow twice as hard. Naito showed them 2 balls and told them that they would need one of them to reach their goal, and he threw them far away, telling them that if any of them reached the finish line without possessing any of these balls, they wouldn't be considered a winner. But Goji, the one with green hair, asked that there were only 2 balls and their number exceeded the number of balls. Ikari wondered if they would fight each other to get them, but Naito told them they would be divided into 3 groups. The first group included Homari, Shiki, and Jin, which made Shiki angry. The second group was Ikari and Goji, and the third group was Rokuro and Quina. The second and third groups would get only 1 ball between them, which made Quina very excited, and Ikari thought the conflict would be intense. Then Naito told them they would enter first and he would follow them after 15 minutes. But Shiki objected to cooperating with Jin, but Naito told him if he didn't do this, he would be expelled, which surprised Shiki at his reaction. Then Homari said to Shiki that she would do her best not to obstruct his path, which shocked Shiki because of her manner since it was the first time he had talked to a girl. Then Shiki told Homari that he would provide her protection, and Homari thought this was too much for her and she didn't want him to feel troubled because of her. Shiki saw that she was very modest. Then Homari also approached Jin and welcomed him, but Jin showed no interest in her, which made Homari cry, and she apologized to him for talking to him, which made Shiki angry at Jin for being the reason Homari cried. Then Shiki approached Homari and asked her not to cry so she wouldn't fill her face with tears even though she looked beautiful when crying, which embarrassed Homari from his kind words. Shiki suggested to Homari that they work together and overcome this challenge. Then he looked at Jin and threatened him, saying he was finished. Then Jin thought that Shiki was the type who talked every 5 minutes and was the type who sought attention, and if he was going to be expelled anyway, it would be better for him to withdraw now before being crushed. But Shiki had a specific goal and would never give it up. Jin thought it was a trivial goal anyway, which made Shiki angry. Then Naito intervened and asked them to stop and asked the first group to start. Then Shiki and Jin started moving, but Homari stopped for a moment looking around, then started moving. Then we moved to Jin, who was moving at a terrifying speed, and he remembered his conversation with Naito that if he killed him, he would be assigned to the unit of his choice. He thought this was a good opportunity for him because he would be able to see that again. While he was moving, Shiki suddenly appeared to him and directed a strike, but it didn't hit Jin. Then they landed on the ground facing each other, and Jin asked Shiki if he had transformed from attention seeker to a clingy madman. But Shiki didn't care about small fights, but he didn't ignore big battles no matter what happened. He asked if he said his goal was trivial, right? And asked him to take back his words now. But Jin told him there were only 2 balls, and it was fine with him if they beat each other for this. And he revealed his ugly face, which made Shiki wonder about the amount of scars Jin had. He asked if he was showing off his old wounds, and told him that the weak were the ones who did this. But Jin thought that if Shiki lost to a weak person like him, he would be scum. He also showed him the scars on his hands, then wounded his hands and showed weapons made from his own blood. Shiki was very amazed by this and wondered how he did this so easily, as if it were nothing. But Jin, why can't he do this at his age? This led to Shiki's anger, and Jin suggested to Shiki that if he was scared he could leave, but Shiki got angry again because if he backed down now, his father's death would be a trivial matter. But when Jin learned that Shiki was here to avenge his father, he understood that they hadn't understood each other at all. But Shiki had no intention from the beginning to understand him, and wounded himself to show weapons, but they didn't work with him. But Jin told Shiki that if he was here to waste his time, he should pay the price for it, which made Shiki very angry. And he said to himself that he does this easily and that he should do this too, and he was very angry about this. But Jin asked Shiki to be a light snack before he devours teacher Naito, but Shiki didn't despair and prepared well for him and attacked him. But their attack caused a powerful explosion and trees fell as well. Then we moved to Homari, who was searching for Jin and Shiki, and felt fear when hearing the explosion sound and asked, "What is this sound?" While she was walking, she stumbled and fell to the ground and thought that a girl like her couldn't be in this place. But she was happy when she remembered Shiki's words that they would work together, but she felt disappointed because she always depends on others and suggested heading toward the sound. One of the spheres was behind her and she didn't see it at all, and Naito had reached her. Then we moved to the 3rd and 2nd groups, and Rokuro felt fear when hearing the sound too, and his heart was about to explode from intense fear. But for Ikari, the matter seemed fun to him, and Joji asked if he wanted to go check the matter, but Joji refused because their turn hadn't come yet. Then we moved to Shiki and Jin directed a strike at Shiki, but he didn't succeed in hitting him. Then Shiki attacked Jin, but Jin avoided his strike and returned a strong punch to him. But Shiki tried to direct strikes at Jin, but he couldn't hit him with any of them. While Shiki was busy looking at Jin's blood and started thinking, Jin appeared beside him and delivered a strike that caused Shiki to fall to the ground. But Shiki felt something for the first time, which was not understanding something that hurts in a damned way. But Jin didn't need to use his blood from the beginning and went away. But Shiki stood up again and asked Jin to stop going, but Jin directed a strong strike at him. But Homari appeared and was in the path of the strike directed at Shiki. But Shiki succeeded in saving Homari from the strike, and the strike caused a big explosion. A drop of Shiki's blood fell on Homari's face, which surprised Homari. Then Shiki asked Jin to apologize to him, but Jin saw that if he wanted to apologize, it would be better for him to go back home. Then Jin hit his hands again and told Shiki that if this small attack scared him, he should withdraw, and this is better for him, which made Shiki very angry. Then Homari started apologizing intensely to Shiki because he got wounded because of her, but Shiki asked her not to worry and that it's not her fault but the fault of that idiot Jin. But Homari showed the bloody monster inside her, which amazed Shiki and surprised Jin too, because Oni have more blood than ordinary people. But Homari's blood is very abundant. Homari asked them to run away or she would kill them. Then Homari's monster directed a strike at them. Then we moved to Naito, and the principal appeared beside him. The principal thought that giving Naito to the new students a life or death mission on the first day was a very bold step, but Naito saw that discipline is more beneficial than explaining for a whole day. The principal saw that Naito cared about them very much, and told him that many Oni die every year and most of them are children, and some of them are killed by their Oni relatives, and some are also taken alive and used as materials for experiments. They don't know anything and don't understand anything, and he wondered what the children think in their last moments. He wished they would go to a better place after death as compensation for what happened to them. But Naito thought if they were strong they wouldn't have died, but the principal asked him to make them strong, then disappeared. Then another explosion happened, and we moved to Shiki, who was close to death, and wondered if Jin died. But Jin attacked Homari's monster and succeeded in wounding it, but it was very big. Then Shiki asked Homari to stop this huge thing, but Homari apologized to him and said she couldn't do anything and lost consciousness. But Shiki saw that she had lost a lot of blood and he should pull her from her place. When he advanced there, the monster protected her so no one would approach her. Jin wondered if blood itself has will. Then the monster directed a big strike at Jin and Shiki, causing them to fall to the ground. But Homari asked her monster to stop and called it her sister. Then Shiki stood up again, covered in blood, but Shiki decided to leave Homari in this condition. But the monster protected Homari again and released a big sonic force that reached the other two groups. Then we moved to Naito, who thought this was Homari's power and wanted to know how the others would deal with this. Then we move again to Shiki, who tried to show his power for the second time but didn't succeed in this. But Naito watched this and thought it wouldn't happen with him again, and that what happened the previous time was just luck and wouldn't be repeated much. Then the monster directed a strike at Shiki, but Shiki moved away, but the monster picked up stones and threw them at Shiki and succeeded in hitting him. Shiki fell to the ground and felt intense anger because he had never lost a fight before, and he had become pitiful. He remembered his father's death while he was still useless and cried a lot over him. He saw that when he is weak, this is something humiliating and very frustrating to him, but Jin saw that if he was going to cry, he should go somewhere else, which made Shiki very angry. Then Jin advanced to the monster and showed his weapons from both his arms, but he still felt pain from the previous strike, but he shouldn't run away so it wouldn't be his end. He prepared to attack the monster. Then we moved to Naito, who saw that making two types of weapons at the same time requires exceptional skill, and that Jin has excellent superiority in accuracy and experience. He also saw that Oni blood can take any shape and any power, and that the image the person carries is transmitted to him from the brain through nerves and blood vessels and is formed accordingly. It's a signal from the brain, and some show their traumas, while others reveal their preferences or tastes. For some others, blood reflects their experiences, and what Oni make from their blood can provide a glimpse into their lives themselves. Making weapons using blood became known by a term. Then we moved to Jin, who attacked the monster and exploited the monster's strike at him by climbing on top of the monster. He wanted to cut off the monster's head, but the monster avoided his strike with terrible speed and almost caught him. On the other side, Shiki was still trying to show his weapon. Then he looked at Jin avoiding the monster's strikes and discovered that all Jin could do was show cutting weapons, and this monster is Homari's sister. Then he remembered his weapons that were in his room and remembered what he had made from blood before. While Jin was still facing the monster and was flying in the air, the monster released its special sonic power, which caused blood to appear from Jin's ear. Naito thought this was all they had and that he would intervene, but Shiki showed his weapons and asked the monster to stop screaming. He aimed at the monster through his blood weapon and felt that this weapon was part of his body and that it was very amazing. But the monster directed a strike at him, but it didn't hit him. But Shiki was still aiming at the monster and fired a shell at it that completely destroyed it, which greatly amazed Naito and Jin with his power. Shiki was very happy about this.